The world doesn't reward the polite whisper. It responds to the voice that dares to rise, even when everything around it says, sit down. It doesn't listen to the one who hesitates, it follows the one who refuses to move. The one who plants both feet in the storm, looks the chaos in the face and says, this is where I make my stand. Because in this life, if you don't stand for something, you'll kneel for everything. And make no mistake, life will test you. It will push you to the edge. It will measure your strength, not when things are calm, but when the waves are high and no one's coming to save you. The true test of a person isn't how they act when the sun is shining, it's who they become when the sky breaks open and everything they've built starts to shake. So the question isn't, will life hit you? It will. The question is, will you hold the line? Rule number 1, know who you are, or the world will tell you who to be. You cannot stand your ground if your identity is for sale. If you're living for approval, you'll fold the moment rejection shows up. If you need to be liked, you'll compromise every time conflict comes knocking. Identity isn't found in a mirror. It's carved in solitude, in the fire. In the moments no one sees, when you make the hard choice instead of the easy escape. You must look in the mirror and know, without flinching, who you are, what you believe, and what you will never tolerate. Because if you don't decide your lines, life will draw them for you and you won't like where they end. They'll tell you to fit in, to stay quiet, to wait your turn. But your calling doesn't wait in line. Your mission doesn't shrink just because someone else is uncomfortable. Don't ask for permission to be who you were born to be. Declare it. Rule number 2, protect your standard like your life depends on it, because it does. Your standard is your gatekeeper. It determines what gets in and what gets thrown out. Relationships, habits, thoughts, words. Everything either builds you or breaks you. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. And most people fail not because they lacked a vision, but because they tolerated what slowly poisoned them. Guard your energy. Guard your schedule. Guard your space. Say no without guilt. Walk away without explanation. You are not required to carry people who refuse to walk. You are not obligated to dim your light for those who never learned to shine. Your standard is the boundary between survival and self-destruction. And when you enforce it, people will call you arrogant. Let them. They're not protecting what you're building. You are. Rule number 3. Your word is your weapon. Use it with precision. Speak truth, not comfort. Speak life, not pity. Speak vision, not limitation. The moment you open your mouth, you plant seeds in your future. Every sentence is either building your foundation or cracking it. Most people lose not because they didn't work hard, but because they spoke death over their own dreams. They curse themselves with casual language. I can't. I'm just not good at that. It never works out for me. Your life follows your language. Talk like a champion, even when you feel broken. Speak like someone who's already arrived, even if your surroundings say otherwise. Because your words are not just sound, they are structure. You live in the house you build with your mouth. And don't just speak to others, speak to yourself. Remind yourself who you are. Remind yourself what you're fighting for. Remind yourself why you cannot quit. Rule number 4, when the pressure rises, double down on discipline. In chaos, most people run to comfort, but warriors run to structure. Champions don't abandon routine. When things get hard, they cling to it. Because discipline is the anchor. It's the lifeline. It's what keeps your feet planted when the winds scream to knock you down. Wake up early. Do the hard reps. Eat with intention. Speak with clarity. Train your body. Feed your mind. Pray with power. Not because it's trendy, but because your mission is too important to leave to mood. Because how you do the small things is how you do everything. Discipline is not punishment. It's protection. It's how you say to the world, I take this seriously. You cannot stand your ground if your foundation is made of sand. Rule number 5, Betray the world before you betray your purpose. There will come a moment, maybe it's already come, when what you're called to do will offend someone. When your light will blind someone living in darkness. When your boldness will trigger the timid. When your courage will convict the comfortable. And you'll be tempted to step back, to water it down, to apologize for your ambition, to negotiate your calling for the comfort of the crowd. Don't you dare. Stand taller. Speak louder. Dig deeper. If your truth makes them uncomfortable, that's their battle, not yours. You weren't born to appease people. You were born to activate them, to awaken what they've buried, to break the patterns they've surrendered to. And that kind of presence is always met with resistance. Good. That's how you know you're on the right path. The right path is not lined with praise. It's littered with obstacles, resistance, and the noise of those who never had the courage to walk it. You keep walking. Rule number 6, pain is proof that you're in the arena. Don't run from it. Too many people tap out at discomfort. They mistake pain for punishment. But pain is not the enemy. Pain is the trainer, the mentor, the refiner. Pain is the loudest signal that you're in the fight. You want strength? Then be willing to sweat. You want growth? Then be willing to bleed. No one builds muscle without resistance. No one levels up without pain. You don't become powerful by avoiding the fire. You become powerful by walking through it and realizing you didn't burn, you forged. Every scar you carry is a symbol that you didn't just survive, you evolved. So stop waiting for an easy road. There is no such thing. But there is honor in the hard one. There is purpose in the pain. There is glory in the grit. And finally, rule number 7, never, ever move unless your soul says go. This world will tempt you with urgency, with shiny things, with applause, with shortcuts, with platforms that aren't built to hold your weight. Don't move until the call comes from within, until the fire is lit not by trend but by truth. Because when you move from soul, you move with force. You move with clarity. You move with conviction. And the world can feel it. Stand your ground, not just for a moment, but as a way of life. Stand when you're tired. Stand when you're questioned. Stand when you're mocked. Stand when you're alone. Because at the end of your life, no one will remember how fast you moved. They'll remember how firm you stood on your values, on your word, on your calling. So ask yourself, where is your line? Where do you draw it? And when the world pushes, will you hold it? Because in the end, power doesn't belong to the loudest. It belongs to the last one standing. Stand your ground and don't move until the mountain moves with you. Stand your ground, even when your legs tremble, even when your voice cracks, even when the air is heavy with pressure and the silence screams louder than the crowd ever could. Because the world doesn't break those who bend, it breaks those who forget why they stood up in the first place. There will be days when the war is internal, when the enemy isn't outside your walls, but within your own mind. The whispers of doubt, the ghosts of past failure, the weight of what if, they'll try to talk you out of your greatness. They'll offer comfort disguised as reason, surrender disguised as peace. But don't confuse relief with freedom. Don't confuse quiet with alignment. Sometimes the most dangerous thing is not what shouts, but what softly seduces you into forgetting your mission. And in those moments, you must return to your why. Why did you begin? Why did you say yes? Why did you decide to rise? Because that reason, that core truth is your fuel when motivation runs dry, when momentum fades, when everything looks the same day after day and the breakthrough hasn't come. That's when your reason becomes your fire. You're not here to chase every shiny path. You're here to dig one trench so deep, so focused, so unshakable that when the storm comes, you don't drift. You drive forward. Most people don't lose because they lack talent. They lose because they scatter. They move when challenged. They shift when scared. They pivot so often they never get rooted. And you cannot grow fruit if your roots are shallow. Stand long enough and the ground will yield. Fight long enough, and the walls will crack. Believe long enough, and reality will shape around your will. But only if you stay. Only if you stop checking the door. Only if you burn the exit strategy. There is no plan B for your calling. There is no escape hatch in the soul of the discipline. You must decide. Sink or rise, but never run. You want impact? Then endure. You want influence? Then go deeper. You want legacy? Then last. Not flash, not fast, but faithful. The ones who change history are not always the loudest or the most gifted. They are the ones who simply refused to leave their post. Through betrayal, through misunderstanding, through obscurity, through the ache of becoming, they stayed, they stood, and they broke the system not by shouting, but by outlasting. That's your power. Not hype, not luck, not noise, but presence. Relentless, grounded, immovable presence. So plant yourself like a tree rooted in fire and fed by vision. Speak only what aligns with your mission. Act only when it adds to your calling. Move only when your spirit says move. You don't owe movement to anyone's timeline. You don't owe reaction to anyone's pressure. You owe truth to yourself, integrity to your purpose, and loyalty to your future. And make no mistake, standing your ground doesn't mean standing still. It means standing true. It means advancing with intention, not anxiety. It means holding to your standard while the world chases trends. It means walking forward, not because you're told to, but because you chose to. From soul, from strength, from sovereignty. And when you do that, people will notice. They'll feel your gravity. They'll be drawn to your calm, your conviction, your consistency. Because true power doesn't shout. It resonates. True strength doesn't flex. It holds. True leadership doesn't beg for followers. It leads itself so powerfully that others can't help but follow. Be that. Be the one who leads by staying, who builds by believing, who wins by refusing to yield. Because when the smoke clears and the noise dies down and every trend fades like dust in the wind, the only thing that remains is the ground you chose to stand on. So build your life on rock, not sand. Build it on principles, not popularity. Build it on the long game, not the highlight reel. Build it like it's your sacred duty, because it is. You're not just holding space for yourself. You're anchoring the future for your family, for your children's children, for a world that desperately needs examples of what unshakable looks like. Be that example. Be the force that cannot be moved. Because when you stand long enough, you become the mountain others lean on. And when the winds rise, you don't just survive the storm. You are the storm. And storms don't apologize. Storms don't ask for permission. Storms don't wait until they're understood or welcomed, they arrive. They command space. They alter landscapes. And when they pass, nothing is quite the same. That's what happens when you stand in your truth. You shift the atmosphere. But here's what most won't tell you. Standing your ground will cost you. It will cost you relationships that were built on your silence, not your strength. It will cost you acceptance in circles that only valued your compliance, not your conviction. It will cost you comfort, because truth isn't comfortable, it's confrontational. But everything you lose by standing firm is nothing compared to what you gain: dignity, direction, legacy, peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from pleasing everyone. The kind that comes from knowing you are exactly where you're meant to be, doing what you were made to do, regardless of who claps. You don't need a crowd. You need clarity. You don't need consensus. You need courage. And the thing about courage, it doesn't feel like a roar. It feels like a whisper that says, go anyway. It feels like trembling hands that still reach. It feels like a cracked voice that still speaks. Courage isn't loud, it's consistent. So be consistent. Consistent with your word. consistent with your values, consistent with your effort, even when results are invisible. Because results are never instant. They're compounded. Every rep, every hour, every prayer, every decision, every stand you take, it's all stacking, quietly, invisibly, until one day it breaks through. Not by accident, but by accumulation. The world will call it sudden. You'll know it was earned. But here's the kicker: you have to stay long enough to see it. And that's where most people lose. They leave 5 minutes before the miracle. They quit 3 steps from the breakthrough. They compromise right before the calling was about to become real. Don't do that. Don't give up your ground just because it got hard. Don't sell your future for the currency of comfort. If you're in the fire, good. It means the gold is being refined. If you're being stretched, good. It means your capacity is growing. If you're being challenged, good. It means your calling is activating. Stand in it. Stand through it. Stand not just for what you want, but for what you were born to create. And every time you think you can't take another step, take one more. Every time you think you've hit the ceiling, raise it. Every time the weight feels like too much, carry it anyway. Because each of those moments is not breaking you, it's building you. And one day when you look back, you'll realize you were never standing still. You were rising. Every silent battle, every unseen hour, every lonely stand, it was never wasted. It was working. It was weaving strength into your spirit, steel into your spine, resolve into your rhythm. So now, stand taller, speak clearer, walk firmer, own your energy, command your space. And if they ask you why you won't bend, why you won't back down, why you keep showing up when most would quit, look them in the eye and say, because I've tasted what it means to stand in truth. I've built a life from the ashes. I've planted my flag on purpose. And this ground I stand on, it's not rented. It's not borrowed. It's mine. And I won't leave it. Not for applause. Not for comfort. Not for fear. Not for anything. Because some things are worth the fight. Some truths are worth the storm. Some lives are only found on the other side of holding your ground. And when your knees buckle, stand anyway. When your voice shakes, speak anyway. When your heart breaks, love anyway. Because when you choose not to move, not from pride, but from purpose, you become unshakable. You become unforgettable. You become undeniable. And that's when the world stops watching you and starts following you. Stand your ground, build your legacy, and let the whole world feel your roots. You stand, not just for success, but for significance. Because wealth fades, fame burns out, applause dies. But impact echoes, legacy lingers. The effect you have by standing tall in your truth will reach further than any spotlight ever could. And when all the noise of the world fades to a whisper, what will matter is not what you gained, but who you became. You became the anchor in the storm, the flame in the dark, the unwavering presence when everything else collapsed. You became the one they could count on because you learned to count on yourself. And that is everything. It means you kept your word even when it hurt. It means you stayed when leaving was easier. It means you bled with integrity instead of winning with compromise. You showed what it means to be solid. In a world of drifting identities, collapsing standards, and hollow ambitions, you held the line. That matters. That changes things. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs pillars. Men and women who don't flinch when tested, who don't flee when challenged, who don't sway with trends, who know who they are and live like it. Daily, fiercely, fully. You are that person. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. Because you chose the narrow road. The one not paved with approval, but carved with clarity. The one not lit by comfort, but illuminated by conviction. And now you're almost there. Feel that? That burn in your chest? That stretch in your soul? That's the edge. That's the threshold where most give up, but not you. You were built for this. You were called for this. You were chosen for this moment, right here, right now, to take everything you've become, everything you've learned, every scar, every stand, every sacred yes, and turn it into the force that changes not only your life, but the lives of everyone who watches you refuse to back down. This is your legacy, not the trophies, not the titles, but the unbreakable decision that no matter what, you will hold your ground. And when the winds howl, you'll roar louder. When the earth quakes, you'll dig deeper. When time tests you, you'll outlast it. Because in the end, all that really matters is that you showed up. Not perfect, not painless, but present, unapologetically, unshakably, fully you. So now, take a breath, lift your chin, set your eyes on what's yours, because it's waiting. And all that stands between you and the life you were born to live is your ability to stand still in truth until the world moves around you. And when they ask how you did it, how you endured, how you won without bending, how you rose without selling out, how you remained when others ran, you'll say, I stood, and that was enough. Stand your ground, own your space, command your future, and never move unless it's forward. You were not born to survive. You were not designed to merely exist, to tick off tasks, to earn just enough to stay afloat, to live inside someone else's definition of stability. You were born to expand. You were born to ignite. You were born to balance the fire within with the calm of purpose. Balance and fulfillment are not luxuries. They are requirements for a life well lived. Yet most people spend their entire existence sprinting on a treadmill, built by fear, chasing goals that don't nourish them, checking boxes that don't belong to them, and reaching destinations that feel nothing like home. But you are not most people. You've paused long enough to ask the real question, how do I build a life that actually feels like mine? And the answer is not found in hustle without harmony, not in ambition without alignment, not in goals without grounding. You build balance and fulfillment by mastering the unseen layers of your life. It begins with your mindset, because without the right mindset, even success becomes a prison. You'll make the money and still feel empty. You'll gain the title and still feel insecure. You'll chase approval and never arrive. You must rewire the core of how you see yourself and how you see the world. Balance doesn't come from doing less. It comes from thinking right. It's the ability to say, I don't need to do it all. I need to do what matters most, with clarity, with presence, with power. And that leads us to the second root belief. If you believe life has to be chaotic, it will be. If you believe peace is a reward for later, you'll never feel it now. If you believe you're unworthy of joy, you'll sabotage every moment it tries to enter. Belief is the thermostat. Fulfillment is the climate. Raise your beliefs, and your life must rise to meet them. The third is clarity, because no one finds fulfillment by accident. You don't stumble into purpose, you carve it. You decide who you want to be, how you want to live, what matters, and then you design your life around that. Clarity kills confusion. It silences noise. It draws lines in the sand and says, this is me. Everything else, optional. And from that clarity, you develop vision, not just for your business, for your soul, for your health, for your family, for your entire life. Vision is what gives balance a backbone. Because when you know where you're going, you stop letting distractions pull you in directions that don't belong to your destiny. You stop trying to match the pace of the world and start moving at the speed of intention. And that's where the fifth piece emerges, purpose. Not passion, purpose. Passion is what excites you. Purpose is what grounds you. It's the why behind the how. It's the meaning behind the money. It's the thing that says, even when it's hard, I will keep showing up because this matters. With purpose, you stop quitting every time it gets heavy. You stop needing motivation to stay consistent. Because now, you're not working for attention, you're working for alignment. From purpose flows discipline. And discipline is the bridge between chaos and peace. Because nothing steals balance faster than being out of control. You cannot live fulfilled if you are a slave to your impulses. You cannot walk in peace if your habits betray your vision. Discipline is not punishment. It is protection. It protects the life you say you want from the version of you that wants to drift. It protects your energy. It protects your time. It protects your future. And when you're anchored in discipline, you begin to value the next piece, action. But not just movement, meaningful action, because motion alone isn't success. A hamster runs every day, but goes nowhere. Real action is action with intent. You know why you're doing it. You know what it feeds. You know what it builds. Action becomes sacred. Every step becomes deliberate. And as you take those steps, you begin to live in a new rhythm, a rhythm of gratitude, because the fulfilled don't just chase what's next, they honor what's now. Gratitude is the rhythm of balance. It teaches your nervous system, we are safe, we are enough, we are here. You stop living in constant chase. You start living in conscious awareness of everything you're building and everything you already have. Gratitude creates space. And in that space, you unlock the most powerful quality of all, adaptability. Because no matter how grounded you are, life will shift. People will leave. Plans will change. Storms will come. And if you are rigid, you will snap. But if you are rooted and flexible, you will rise higher. Because adaptability is not weakness. It's mastery. The ability to bend without breaking, to pivot without panic, to shift without losing yourself. And when you've mastered all of these, the mindset, the belief, the clarity, the vision, the purpose, the discipline, the action, the gratitude, and the adaptability, you become resilient, not just to survive, but to radiate, to lead, to inspire, to live wide open, unshaken, unapologetic, unstoppable. That is balance. That is fulfillment. That is what you were built for. You were built for this. Not for chaos, not for confusion, not to live life buried beneath stress and strangled by expectations that don't belong to you. You were built to walk with power and peace at the same time, to command your mornings like a general and embrace your nights like a sage, to run with fire in your heart but sleep with stillness in your soul. That's balance. It's not the absence of movement, it's the orchestration of meaning. You wake up and move with purpose. You say yes with precision. You say no without guilt. You don't scatter your energy, hoping something sticks. You aim it. And when you aim with that level of intention, the world responds. People begin to respect your time. Opportunities start to align. Your days feel lighter, not because they're easier, but because you're stronger. You become anchored in values, anchored in standards, anchored in an identity that doesn't need to impress because it's already integrated. You no longer need the world to validate your direction. You know where you're going. You know who you are. And you know what? You refuse to sacrifice anymore. You refuse to sacrifice your joy for someone else's comfort. You refuse to sacrifice your peace for another meaningless pursuit. You refuse to sacrifice your soul for a seat at someone else's table. Because now you build your own. A life tailored, not templated. A schedule designed, not defaulted. A legacy chosen, not inherited. This is what balance does. It doesn't shrink your dreams, it elevates them. It doesn't slow you down. It clears the noise so you can move faster, cleaner, further. Fulfillment becomes your fuel. You don't need the weekend to feel alive. You don't need a vacation to escape your life because now you've built a life you don't need to run from. And every day you rise not in rush, but in readiness. Readiness to lead, readiness to give, readiness to serve, readiness to receive. And in that rhythm, not one built on hustle, but on harmony, you thrive. You thrive in your craft. You thrive in your energy. You thrive in your presence. Because now Success doesn't cost you your center. It flows from it. You've become the rarest kind of human, the one who doesn't just build empires, but builds them from a place of wholeness. Wholeness. That's the real wealth. Because what good is the world if you lose yourself to reach it? What good is building the dream if it robs you of the peace you were chasing in the first place? You've seen it, people with millions in the bank and nothing in their spirit. You've seen the powerful who are empty. You've seen the busy who are broken. You've seen the admired who are addicted to everything that disconnects them from themselves. But you are not chasing the illusion of success. You are embodying the truth of it. Because true success is integrated. It's when your values match your actions. It's when your energy reflects your purpose. It's when your calendar serves your calling, not your chaos. You walk with alignment now, not because life got easier, but because you stopped living out of sync with yourself. You started listening deeper. You started prioritizing differently. You started respecting your peace like it was sacred, because it is. Peace is not the absence of ambition. It's the foundation that allows it to thrive. Because when you're whole, you don't burn out. You burn brighter. You don't grind until you're numb. You move with fire and feel everything. You don't numb the discomfort. You transform it. And that transformation is what brings you into balance. A balance between the doing and the being, between the pushing and the pausing, between the building and the breathing. You're no longer just productive. You're present. Present to your growth. Present to your relationships. Present to the moments that don't make it to your to-do list, but make your life worth living. This is the shift. The shift from chasing life to creating life. The shift from managing stress to designing rhythm. The shift from surviving days to orchestrating days that feed your soul. And once you've felt this, truly felt it, you will never go back. You will never again live like peace is a reward. You will demand it as a standard. Because it is. Because balance and fulfillment are not what you get after the climb. They are how you climb. With depth, with direction, with decisiveness. Because when you move from a place of wholeness, you don't just change your life. You become the permission for others to change theirs. You become the permission for others to change theirs. Not through preaching, not through pushing, but through presence. Because your presence now speaks. It speaks of boundaries without bitterness. It speaks of ambition without anxiety. It speaks of power that doesn't have to prove itself. You walk into rooms and people feel it. The calm, the clarity, the confidence. Not born from noise, but from knowing. Knowing who you are, knowing what you value, knowing where your energy belongs and where it no longer fits. And the world notices. Because in a time when everyone's running, you're rooted. When others are addicted to speed, you've mastered stillness. When the crowd needs external validation, you operate from internal alignment. That's what makes you rare. And in your rarity, you restore others. You become the example. You become the friend who doesn't just listen, but lives it. You become the leader who doesn't just teach balance, they embody it. And that embodiment, it's what gives you reach. Not the kind that's measured in followers, but the kind that's felt in rooms. The kind that leaves people better, clearer, lighter just because you existed fully in yours. That's fulfillment. Not a trophy. Not a title. Not a number in a bank account. But a life lived so deliberately, so deeply, so decisively, that even your silence inspires motion. So guard this rhythm. Protect this peace. Nurture this balance like a garden that feeds generations. Because when you live in alignment, when you rise in wholeness, when you master both intensity and inner stillness, you don't just survive life. You sculpt it. You compose it like a symphony. With strength in one hand, serenity in the other. With boundaries drawn in boldness. With joy built into your hours. And fulfillment? It's no longer a someday. It's right here, right now, because you made the decision to stop chasing everything and start becoming everything you were always meant to be. You start becoming everything you were always meant to be, not in fragments, not in the shadows, not in spurts of short-lived motivation, but in full expression, unfiltered, unapologetic, unshaken, because balance isn't about staying still. It's about staying centered, no matter how fast the world spins. And fulfillment isn't found in finishing the to-do list. It's found in finishing the day and knowing you were fully present for your life. That you didn't just go through the motions, you moved with meaning. That you didn't just check the boxes, you poured your soul into every line. Because here's the truth no one talks about. You can't outrun the ache of an unlived life. You can make money and still feel bankrupt inside. You can gain success and still feel invisible in your own home. You can be surrounded by people and still feel like you're missing from your own story. That stops now. You reclaim yourself. You stop running from your depth and return to it. You stop overcommitting to everyone else and recommit to your own alignment. You stop outsourcing your worth to outcomes and anchor it in who you've become. This is the moment you turn the volume back up on your soul. The moment you remember that life is not just about winning. It's about waking up to the beauty, to the purpose, to the sacred power of being fully alive. And when you live from that place, you make decisions cleaner. You speak with more compassion. You move with more certainty. You work with more focus. You rest with more intention. Because balance without fulfillment is just decoration. But balance with fulfillment, that's dominion. That's when life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. And now, you're no longer a product of your schedule. You are the architect of your rhythm. You are the author of your peace. You are the protector of your energy. And every day becomes a masterpiece in motion. Every breath becomes a declaration. Every hour becomes holy ground. Because balance and fulfillment are not things you find. They are choices you make. And you just made them. And you just made them fully, finally, without apology. Because there comes a time when enough is enough. Enough living halfway. Enough running on empty. Enough climbing mountains that don't lead to your summit. You woke up. You saw the cost of the chaos. You counted the price of pretending. And you made a vow. Never again will I abandon myself to belong to a life that doesn't belong to me. From that vow, you rise. Not to hustle harder, but to live deeper. Not to do more, but to be more aligned. And now, the way you move changes. You protect your mornings like sacred ground. You set your intentions like a warrior, sharpening their blade. You give your time with purpose, not guilt. You rest without shame because you've earned it, and you know it's required. Your life becomes rhythmic, a symphony of ambition and ease, fire and stillness, creation and restoration. You no longer drown in your calendar, you compose it. You no longer live in extremes, you operate in expansion. You no longer hustle for validation because fulfillment is your proof. And you don't need everyone to understand this path because fulfillment is not performance. Balance is not a show. It's a frequency, a quiet power, an inner home that no one can take from you. So you live by that frequency now. You speak less, but every word carries weight. You move slower, but every step shakes the ground. You need less and attract more. More clarity, more peace, more alignment with the life you were born to lead. This is the reward, not the mansion, not the applause. This, waking up whole, going to sleep proud, living every hour with your soul intact. That's what happens when you stop selling your time for approval and start investing your presence in your purpose. You've mastered it now. You've made balance your baseline. You've made fulfillment your fuel. And from this point on, you don't chase life. You embody it. You embody it. You don't wake up wondering how to survive the day you rise to lead it. You don't drift between roles, bouncing between pressure and guilt. You move as one whole, powerful, integrated human. Everything aligns now. Your thoughts serve your vision. Your habits serve your values. Your energy serves your mission. You've become intentional in every dimension. You give without depletion. You rest without anxiety. You lead without losing yourself. Because you've tasted the difference between achievement and aliveness. And once you've felt that, truly felt it, everything that once distracted you begins to lose its grip. You stop comparing. You stop chasing. You stop proving. Because there's nothing to prove when you're present in your power. Now your days are no longer dictated by demands, but directed by design. You decide what gets your focus. You decide what earns your time. You decide how success looks, feels, and serves you, not the world's version, your own. That's the liberation. Balance was never about equal parts. It was about essential parts. Fulfillment was never about having it all. It was about having what actually matters. You stripped the noise. You shed the pressure. You burned the illusion. And now, what's left is truth. A truth you live by. A truth you speak from. A truth you lead with. And in that truth, you are free. Free to move fast without rushing. Free to slow down without guilt. Free to be ambitious without anxiety. Free to be whole without needing to be perfect. You've finally become the rarest kind of person, the one who's both on fire and at peace. And that balance, that's not a phase. That's not a mood. That's not a weekend retreat. That's your new way of being. Because you no longer wake up trying to balance your life. You live your life as the balance. You live your life as the balance. The still center in the middle of motion. The grounded force in a world of chaos. The silent standard that says, I know who I am and I know what I'm building. You are not moved by noise because your life speaks louder. You are not pulled by pressure because you've already chosen your direction. You are not seduced by speed because you've defined your own rhythm. You've moved beyond reaction and into orchestration. You've taken the wheel. And now, every day is a deliberate step towards something deeper than success, something richer than wealth, something more eternal than results. You are building a life that feels like home, not just a career, not just a body, not just a platform, a life. And the deeper you build it, the less you tolerate what used to break you. You no longer bend for validation. You no longer shrink for acceptance. You no longer apologize for choosing your peace. Because you've learned balance is not weakness. It is warrior wisdom. The wisdom to say no. The wisdom to walk away. The wisdom to rest when your soul asks. The wisdom to protect your fire from people who don't know what it took to light it. You live different now. Not louder, but clearer. Not faster, but more fully. Not to impress, but to express the highest version of yourself. And that expression, it's magnetic. People feel it in your presence. They hear it in your silence. They trust it in your consistency. Because you're no longer someone trying to find balance. You've become the embodiment of it. And that embodiment, that unshakable centeredness, becomes your greatest success. A life that doesn't collapse under pressure. A mind that doesn't crumble under noise. A spirit that walks through fire and still breathes peace. That's what you've built. That's who you've become. And that is what it means to live a life of balance and fulfillment. That is what it means to live a life of balance and fulfillment. A life not borrowed from someone else's expectations, not shaped by guilt, not driven by fear, but crafted from the inside out. Every room you enter, you carry your own atmosphere. You don't need to adjust to chaos because you've mastered your calm. You don't need to chase the energy, you are the energy. The rhythm you walk with now, it's not frantic. It's not forced. It's foundational. It's the rhythm of a person who has nothing to prove and everything to give, because that's the power of a fulfilled life. It overflows. You love without exhaustion. You lead without ego. You give without becoming empty, because you are full, not of noise, not of validation, but of alignment. And when alignment becomes your baseline, life opens. Doors that felt sealed begin to move. Opportunities come not because you begged, but because you became. People respect you, not because you demanded it, but because you radiate it. Your life starts speaking a different language, a language of sovereignty, of presence, of peace woven into power. And now you are the proof. You're the proof that balance doesn't weaken, drive it, supercharges it. That fulfillment doesn't mean settling. It means selecting what matters most. That success doesn't require sacrifice of self, but the discovery of your deepest self. You've lived in both worlds, the noise and the clarity, the rush and the rhythm, the pressure and the peace. And you chose the path of wholeness. You chose the path of depth. You chose you. So from this moment on, let the world move how it moves. Let the opinions swirl. Let the noise rise. Because you don't move with the world. You move with your truth, with your standards, with your spirit, with your balance, and with a deep, unwavering fulfillment that no one can give you and no one can take away. This is the life. You didn't just hope for it. You didn't just dream about it. You built it, and now you live it.